My fiance wants his father to check my hymen tomorrow night before I get married. My fiance proposed to me about 8 months ago. We decided on having a relatively small wedding, which is in 2 days. Everything was going great. He seems absolutely perfect and we're very much in love. I'm a virgin and so is he. He wanted to save it for marriage and I wasn't fussed, so I agreed to saving it. He has told me earlier that in his family, the father checks the virginity of the bride the night before the wedding. I laughed this off as it seriously sounds like a massive joke. No, turns out he was dead serious. He wants me the night before to open my legs up in a small ceremony type thing so his dad can check me while him, his brothers, and uncle watch so they know that I'm pure. I told him fat chance I was going to do that, and he was begging me to go through with it and how important it is for him. He said he knew it was slightly embarrassing for me, but his mom did it and it will prove how much I love him and that I have nothing to hide anyway as I'm still a virgin. I left and he was crying. It was very dramatic, to be honest. I want to call off the whole wedding because of this and never talk to him again. However, at the same time, it's only one thing, and other than that, we're genuinely perfect for each other and I don't want to spend the rest of my life with anyone else, and it's very important to him and his family. What the frick frack do I do? I'm currently at my friend's house and I might stay here for the night. Tomorrow will be our last day as an unmarried couple and I'm straight up panicking. Am I the asshole for kicking my wife's father out of our wedding? My wife, 26, and I, 24, got married in early July. We decided to have a small 40-people wedding where masks were required, even for vaccinated folks. It was a dry wedding because my father used to struggle with alcoholism and I didn't want to trigger an accidental relapse. This was years ago, but I just wasn't willing to risk it. Instead, we offered virgin drinks and soda. Well, my wife's father didn't like this. My father-in-law was old friends with my dad and they'd gone through addiction together. My dad had taken the steps to get clean, but my father-in-law hadn't and still struggled. He constantly begged us to have an open bar at the wedding, saying that he didn't know if he could sit through the wedding sober. We ignored his request and held firm on the dry wedding. Well, that's when things went south. The ceremony passes and the reception begins. Everything is going well until we notice that my father-in-law is acting weird. Turns out he had bought a case of beer and hid it under one of the tables before the ceremony began. He was pestering my dad to drink with him just like old times. I was furious, beyond furious. I immediately called him out for his inappropriate behavior and demanded that he left. He started screaming at me, telling me that I was a dumb B and the F slur. My father-in-law and brother-in-law left, but my mother-in-law was pissed. She acted as though I didn't understand that he was addicted. I knew that, and if he felt like he couldn't go one night without it, then he shouldn't have showed up. However, his behavior was completely unacceptable. My wife feels that I'm justified in what I did, but my in-laws won't even talk to me. So, am I the asshole? 2 months ago, I became unexpectedly pregnant, despite being on birth control and despite the fact that I'm 41 years old. To be honest, it was a shock. My SO and I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and honestly, the thought of a second child wouldn't be in our future. It's not that we didn't want one, but given my age and our financial situation, it seemed best to be happy with our beautiful daughter. When my period didn't come, I honestly thought I might be starting menopause early. When my pregnancy test showed positive, I had so many mixed emotions, both happy and scared. In the end, we decided we would make it work and we would love another child and have another sibling for our daughter. Because of my age, my OB suggested I do genetic testing and screening for potential problems. Yesterday, I got the call that my baby has a 90% chance of Down syndrome. Also, that the baby was a boy. I'll have another test next week just to confirm what we basically know. My heart is ripping apart. As much as I already love this baby, as much as I want him, I look into the future and it's not good. Financially, a special needs child would be near impossible for us. I also worry about what this would do for my daughter's future. Not just financially, but as I'm an older woman, who would be tasked to take care of him when I could not? How can I place that burden on my living child? We can't know the severity of his disabilities until he's born, but what kind of a life am I laying out before him? I'm leaning towards terminating the pregnancy now, and it's still very early, but I am truly torn. I'm full of guilt and doubt, afraid of making the wrong choice. I would honestly like to hear other opinions or experiences who have either been in my position or have a special needs child. In high school, I was friends with this girl named Sarah. One day, she caught me trying to steal $50 from her during our group project. She requested the teacher not to work with me. I got very mad because she could have just talked it out. Back then, I was an angry and volatile person. So what follows is, well, nothing I'm too proud of. I ended up spreading rumors about her that she had Marfan syndrome, which isn't true, and that she's a racist Trump supporter. After I did this, no one wanted to be her friend. We went to a small high school. She literally had no one. I even turned her best friend against her and made up a bunch of stuff that she never even said. I tried to make her everyday life as difficult as possible. In the end, I put a photo of her Photoshop with her abuser in the yearbook who doesn't attend our high school. From what I heard, she cried and cried when she saw it. She knows I did it because I signed my name at the bottom. I also made a bunch of Tumblr posts talking trash about her and she saw all of them. Shortly after this, she went rogue. She packed up, cut everyone off, and moved far, far away to another major city. This was about 6 years ago. She still has me blocked on all social media to this day. Recently, I found out through my former English teacher that she's a law student and I was thinking about messaging her. Since high school, I discovered that I'm bipolar and I want to reach out to her and see how she's doing and tell her about my diagnosis. A mutual says that I shouldn't reach out and that Sarah specifically asked them not to reveal her whereabouts or what she's doing to me. This really stung because that was 6 years ago and it shouldn't still bother her. I feel like I should have the opportunity to express myself and my diagnosis. I feel like while what I did was wrong, it should be water under the bridge now. Would I be the asshole to contact the girl I bullied in high school? Story time when a celebrity came into my job and refused to pay. Every so often, we get a celebrity in the restaurant. I've never been here when it's happened though. We're not too far from our city's main concert venue, but the owner still has a strict no comping meals for anyone based on star power policy that we're all apprised of when we were hired. His logic being it'll start as just one exception and turn into all sorts of D-listers sniffing around looking for an ego boost. Ironically, this has never been a problem because the 1 or 2 times we've had real celebrities in, they've never expected a free meal, they've paid and tipped well. It's only the D-listers who act all shocked when the check comes. But we almost never get them either, so it's really not a big deal. Until last week. We're located right by my college, and a girl who attends my college was recently on the Dr. Phil show. She was not a featured guest, she did not appear in person, but she was teleconferenced in for like maybe a total of 3 minutes to weigh in on the featured guest's, a friend of hers from high school I think, relationship. But because she was on TV, she thought she was the hottest thing to have ever happened on campus. I'd hear people joking about how she was going around telling everyone she was a celebrity and how she kept expecting people to recognize her. It sounded really cringy and terrible. But I don't know her, I hadn't even seen the show, so what did I care? It was fun gossip for 10 seconds, but I quickly forgot about it. However, this girl's self-absorption wasn't completely baseless. There are a lot more students on campus than usual this summer because so many took gap semesters to avoid Zoom during COVID. Not much is happening around here as we ease back into normal life, so people did get unreasonably excited about someone from our school being on national TV. So she was sort of being treated like a celebrity. She was getting a lot of special attention. She even got some free things on campus and had some people ask to take a photo with her. In an ironic sense, but she didn't understand that. So she decided to start testing the waters off campus and I guess met with some success because most of the nearby businesses are staffed with students. She soon appeared in our restaurant. She was a nightmare from the moment she stepped in the door. I didn't recognize her at first, but it all clicked that she was demanding a 4 top despite being a party of 1. We were okay with it only because we weren't especially busy. She didn't make eye contact with her server. She wasn't in my section, but I ate up every second of her visit with us once I realized who she was. The first thing I heard her say after the server said hi and introduced himself was, "Menu, water, new fork." Like she was writing out a list. Her server was only just bumped from trainee status and he's barely 16, so it especially sucked that she was dumped on him. He's incredibly shy and sweet. If I'd anticipated the shitstorm this woman blew in with her, I'd have swat with him. But this all happened pretty quickly and I'll usually do anything to avoid serving classmates I don't like. It's rare I don't like a classmate that I haven't met, but there's a first time for everything. Of course, nothing on our menu was acceptable to her as is. She had to get a ton of substitutions and additions. Even her side salad of mixed greens had to be, not kidding, unmixed. She wanted each lettuce, but separately on the plate. Her server explained that the greens come pre-mixed, but she just stared blankly past him and went, "So, separated," as though it was the most obvious thing ever. The kitchen actually accommodated all of her requests because it was a really slow day and there were easy enough solutions to each thing, but she still sent at least one of her plates back. In the 20 or so minutes it took for her food to come out, she asked us how much longer it would take 4 times. She demanded that we change the music we had onto a playlist of hers instead. She made comments about the lighting. By the time she was finished eating, we were seconds away from throwing her out. He asked if everything was alright and if she needed anything else. She said no, so he said he'd be right back with the check. I could tell from her face, even as far away as I was, that she wasn't expecting a check. She looked all sour and twisted. I was dying internally. It was so satisfying. But then she stood up and calmly just walked right out of the door. This is when I had to follow her. Part 2, when a celebrity came into my work and refused to pay. I wasn't sure what I was seeing at first. I thought maybe she'd gone to get her wallet from her car or something, but this isn't the kind of place where a lot of people drive. I just knew in my gut that I had to follow up because her server definitely wouldn't. I went out of the door and yup, she was tripsing down the street, tapping away on her phone like nothing was wrong in the world. I called out to her and she half turned around, then realizing I was from the restaurant, tried to pretend she hadn't heard me and went right back to walking, quickening her pace a little. I would have laughed if I wasn't so pissed. So I jogged to catch up with her and was trying to keep the situation nice and calm and allow her to save as much face as possible and was just like, "Oh, hi, sorry, there's just a little matter of the bill," knowing damn well she didn't forget, but figuring confronting her would just feed into unnecessary drama. She looks at me in total disbelief and says that she was going to Instagram or meal with us and that's typically enough when she goes out, without a hint of sarcasm or embarrassment. So I didn't know who she was because her reaction to being on TV was such a laughingstock on campus, but, and maybe this was a little mean, but I couldn't resist. I went, "Sorry, who are you?" And she effing lost it, insisting that I knew exactly who she was and that I was jealous of her and that, wait for it, that's why I was forcing her to pay for her food she ordered at the restaurant. I didn't want to be overly mean, so rather than antagonize her further, though it was very low-hanging fruit, I just told her, "Look, if you don't plan on paying, we'll have to involve the police." She laughed and said, "Well, if you don't know who I am, you won't be able to find me, right?" Honestly, she had me there, but I didn't need to admit to her that I really knew who she was because for all she knew, we had security cameras or would describe her really well. So I let her walk off and I went back to the restaurant and called the police. It was absurdly easy to track her down because I didn't know who she was and that she was posting geotagged posts online all day, including a super angry post about how she had eaten at a restaurant and it had been terrible. So she incriminated herself and let the police write to her. I doubt the cops would have followed up so diligently if it were only us, but apparently she'd walked out on a couple other places that generally didn't recognize her and expected her to pay up, and posted angrily about how the businesses sucked, further incriminating herself. They didn't know who she was, but they described her well enough, and that paired with the post was enough for the police to drag her in. Our trainee server actually had to go down somewhere to identify her. He was terrified when he was first asked, but when he came back he was totally giddy and thought the whole experience was pretty cool. Me and 4 other girls have been best friends since middle school and we're all 17. When we were freshmen, we got matching necklaces that say besties for the resties on them. One of us will say besties and the others will respond for the resties. One of my best friends is named Alexa. She was one of the 4 and she did everything with us. A few weeks ago, out of the blue, she decided she wants to be called Alex and to be a guy now. And also to use he, him pronouns. They're basically a totally different person now. I feel like my best friend has died. None of us even recognize this new person and all of us are kind of in mourning. We've stopped hanging out with them pretty much. It's not the same now. It's really depressing. Today, they tried to get the other 4 of us to do the same. They kept saying besties over and over, trying to get us to do the response, but no one was doing it and it was just a tense, depressing silence. Then they started crying and it made me want to cry. I feel like my best friend is dead and I know the others are very upset too. We won't ever get our friend back. Alexa is dead. We can't go shopping together, can't watch the same movies now, can't have sleepovers, can't get our nails done, can't do each other's hair, can't bake cupcakes now. There's literally nothing left to do together that wouldn't